What's up guys, my name is Ace, and the Blunderbuss from Advanced Warfare is back, or at least sort of. It's not technically a muzzleloader like the Blunderbuss was in Advanced Warfare, but with the MWIII sniper rifle last week we got the JAK Widemouth kit, which converts the MWIIIs into a shotgun that performs quite a bit like the Blunderbuss did, and also looks quite a bit like the Blunderbuss did from Advanced Warfare. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a deep dive and seeing exactly how this works, and then toward the end, I'll share a couple great setups that you can use with this. And let's start this one off with our rate of fire, since that's the most important value with this, I would say. Our base rate of fire with this is quite slow at 45 rounds per minute. However, just like with the base version of the MWIIIs, we're technically reloading between each shot. And since we're reloading instead of relying on a rate of fire value, the mag holster perk, or the gunner vest, or any vest that will improve our reload time, that will also technically improve our rate of fire up to 51 rounds per minute. So that is a nice improvement there, and therefore I would highly recommend always using mag holster or one of the vests that improves reload time if you're using the JAK Widemouth kit. But then on top of that, we can affect our rate of fire with our bolt attachments. And the first one is our heavy bolt, which is going to harm our rate of fire, and therefore I would just say don't bother with that one. The tiny bit of upside is absolutely not worth that downside. Whereas with the quick bolt, this increases our rate of fire up to 49 rounds per minute. Or if you combine it with mag holster, now we can get up to 55 rounds per minute, and that's our best possible fire rate with this kit. So there we go, those are all our rate of fire stats, and that's absolutely going to be the number one limiting factor with this. It's got such a slow rate of fire. But next, let's have a look at our ranges. And the first thing to point out here, compared to the other shotguns, we've got a massive pellet count with the JAK Widemouth kit. Most other shotguns will fire roughly 8 to 10 pellets per shot, whereas the JAK Widemouth kit fires 20 pellets every shot that you fire, although each pellet isn't dealing very much damage. And in the maximum damage range, if you want to get a one-shot kill, you just have to land 6 out of those 20 pellets. So it's reasonably consistent, but it's also definitely not impossible to be getting hit markers even at point-blank range. That will absolutely happen if you're not nicely centered on target. Then based on my testing, the maximum one-shot kill potential I was able to get to was about 11 meters. Then beyond that, I was able to get a two-shot kill out to 19 meters. And then after that, at 20.3 meters, that is our maximum hit potential. Anything beyond that range, you can't even deal damage. So overall, this shotgun definitely has some potential to it, although there are some clear downsides. And one of those downsides is our Hipfire spread. But before we get into that, today's video is sponsored by NordVPN. And I'm really excited about this one since I love promoting products that I actually use on a regular basis, and NordVPN is one of those products. I tried a bunch of different VPNs over the years, and Nord is the only one I've stuck to and maintained a subscription to for years now. And one of the big reasons I've stuck with NordVPN over some of the alternatives is it's by far the fastest VPN I've ever used. Oftentimes with a VPN, the moment you connect to it, it becomes a bottleneck for your bandwidth. And with my gigabit internet, I want to be able to use all the bandwidth that I'm paying for. And with Nord, I haven't seen any noticeable reduction at all to my download speeds when I'm connected. On top of this, I just love how intuitive the app is. I primarily use this for watching content that I don't have access to in Canada on various streaming sites like Netflix, for instance. And different countries often have very different content libraries, so NordVPN allows me to tap into those. And all I have to do with NordVPN is open up the app, find the location I want to connect to on the map, click it, and within seconds, I'm connected as if I were actually there. So if you're in the market for a VPN provider, look no further than NordVPN and use my special link at nordvpn.com/TheXclusiveAce, and you can get 4 extra months with a 2-year plan, risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Big thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring the video. All right, getting back to it with our Hipfire spread with the JAK Widemouth kit, compared to the shotguns in the game, obviously I'm not comparing to sniper rifles here. As you can see, our minimum Hipfire spread is 8 degrees, which is very wide. That's actually wider than our average maximum Hipfire spread when moving with shotguns in this game. And then our maximum, if we're like sliding or jumping, this is ridiculously wide at 11 degrees. So for core game modes at least, this is actually going to be a massive limiting factor, since the farther away you get, the less likely you are to be hitting enough pellets to get a kill, simply because they're going to be spread out so wide. And I mean, it's not surprising, it's literally called the JAK Widemouth kit. But one thing I want to point out here is for hardcore game modes, this is actually an advantage to have a wider spread if you are going to be using a shotgun, because you really only need to land a couple pellets in order to get a kill at any range you're able to deal damage. And by having such a wide spread, the likelihood of hitting your target goes up quite a bit. They just have to be somewhat roughly centered on your screen and you'll be able to hit them. Now on top of this, I just wanted to throw in our aim down sight spread, which is 5 degrees. And the thing with this compared to the shotguns in the game is we don't have any attachments at all that can improve our aim down sight spread. That's literally the best you're going to get is 5 degrees. And the average aim down sight spread for shotguns in this game without attachments is 2.1 degrees. And keep in mind, you can typically get much tighter than that when using chokes, for instance. So that's another huge limiting factor with the MWIIIs, is even aiming down sight, you're going to have quite a wide pellet spread. In saying that, that doesn't mean you should never aim down sight with this. You're still going to get a tighter spread than if you weren't aiming down sight. It's just not going to have the same sort of benefits you would typically expect out of a shotgun. And with that part covered, let's get into our handling stats. And our aim down sight time is 280 milliseconds, which is actually pretty quick for a shotgun in this game. Whereas our sprint to fire time is unfortunately quite slow at 245 milliseconds for our standard sprint out time and 350 milliseconds for our tactical sprint out time. And that's something you probably want to try to get under control with some attachments, because that's very slow for a shotgun. As for our reload time, just like with the base version of the MWIIIs, like I said earlier, reloading is essentially our rate of fire in this game, and I'd actually consider that to be an upside. You never have to think about like, oh, when do I have to get my magazine reloaded before making this push? Every shot that you fire is technically a reload. And therefore, if you think of it like that, your reserve ammo is basically your magazine capacity. But then finally, for our base stats, let's have a look at our movement speeds. And across the board, we're pretty much just average for the shotguns in this game. We're at least within very small margins of average. So nothing out of the ordinary here. It just works the same as a typical shotgun would when it comes to movement speed. And with all of that out of the way, now we can get into some excellent attachment combinations I threw together for you guys when using the JAK Widemouth kit. And the first one I wanted to share is my all-arounder. So with this one, we're using the Brune Bastion Angled Grip, the Verve Tac stock, and the Quick Bolt combined with the kit itself. So with this one, we can get a 55 round per minute rate of fire if you're also using mag holster, which I would recommend. Our aim down sight speed is a bit slower at 305 milliseconds, but that's not really going to matter much, and I'll tell you why in a second. But our sprint out time is improved a little bit here at 223 milliseconds for our standard sprint out time, which honestly isn't an amazing sprint out time still. This is still something you have to be planning for. You don't want to be sprinting into gunfights if you can avoid it. However, the nice thing about this setup is our minimum hipfire spread is 5 degrees, which you guys will remember, that's exactly the same as our aim down sight spread. So as long as we're standing still, or if we're using the assault gloves, which will ensure that our spread doesn't widen when we're moving around, this means aiming down sight won't actually do anything for you when it comes to improving spread. You don't have to aim down sight. However, just know if you're sliding or jumping, you will still see a noticeable increase to your spread. So you just have to make sure you use those movements very sparingly and try to ensure that you're not firing well in the middle of those movements, for the most part at least. Now, of course, that's just the first option, and my preferred option with this. The big thing is you just have to manage your sprint out time, and as long as you're doing that, I find this to be one of the more consistent ways to use the JAK Widemouth kit. However, if you want to be a whole lot more aggressive with it, here is my sprint out build, where I stack super heavy towards sprint out time and aim down sight speed. So with this one, we're using the new paracord grip, the DXS Flash 90 laser, or flashlight I guess it is, the Superlight 90 stock, and once again the Quick Bolt. So with this one, again, we get that best possible rate of fire with mag holster at 55 rounds per minute. Our aim down sight speed is now improved nicely at 250 milliseconds. Our sprint out time is greatly improved. It's now just 146 milliseconds, so that's going to be far better if you run into an enemy while sprinting. You're actually going to be able to fight back way more effectively than the previous build. However, there's a trade-off to that, and that is our hipfire spread minimum is not improved at all with this setup, so it's 8 degrees. And our maximum, while it isn't quite as bad as the base, it's almost as bad at 10.5 degrees. And what this means is if you're using this setup, more often than not, you want to try to get aim down sight, unless of course you're like practically touching your enemy. And so it's really all about balancing those pros and cons. And that is one of the big reasons I'd rather just play with the previous setup. There's more consistency there. I can just hip fire. I'm going to get fewer hit markers, but I have to manage that sprint out time. And with that, that is going to wrap it up today's video on the JAK Widemouth kit for the MWIIIs. And honestly, I love the fact that they added this as a kit. I love the Blunderbuss in Advanced Warfare. I always just find it to be a very unique challenge. It's obviously not a meta gun, but I just find it to be really fun to use. It's a fun change of pace. It's actually a reasonably powerful shotgun, but there's massive trade-offs attached to that, and I think that's great. But of course, those are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about the JAK Widemouth kit in those comments down below. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.